Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 11, text number 11. Phala Vikrayini Tasya Shutadhanya Kara Dvayam Phalaihi Apurayat Ratnaihi Phalabhandam Apuricha Phalavikrayini Tasya Shutadhanya Karadvayam Phalerapurayadratnai Phalabandham Apuricha Phalavikrayini Tasya Shutadhanya Karadvayam Phalerapurayadratnai Phalabhandam Apuricha Phalavikrayini Tasya Shutadhanya Karadvayam Phalerapurayadratnai Phalabhandam Apuricha. Mataji's. Phalavikrayini, the aboriginal fruit vendor, who is also an elderly woman. Tasya, of Krishna. Shutadhanya, the paddy he brought to barter having mostly fallen. Karadvayam, palms of the hands. Phalai apurayat, the fruit vendor filled his small palms with fruits. Ratnai, in exchange for jewels and gold. Phalabhandam, the basket of fruit. Apuricha, filled. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. While Krishna was going to the fruit vendor very hastily, most of the grains he was holding fell. Nonetheless, the fruit vendor filled Krishna's hands with fruits, and her fruit basket was immediately filled with jewels and gold. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Patram pushpam param toyam yomi bhakti aprayachati tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnami priyatmanaha. Krishna is so kind that if anyone offers him a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or some water, he will immediately accept it. The only condition is that these things should be offered with bhakti. Yo me bhaktya prayachati. Otherwise, if one is puffed up with false prestige, thinking, I have so much opulence and I'm giving something to Krishna, one's offering will not be accepted by Krishna. The fruit vendor, although a woman belonging to the poor Aborigine class, dealt with Krishna with great affection, saying, Krishna, you have come to me to take some fruit in exchange for grains. All the grains have fallen, but still you may take whatever you like. Thus she filled Krishna's palms with whatever fruits he could carry. In exchange, Krishna filled her whole basket with jewels and gold. From this incident, one should learn that for anything offered to Krishna with love and affection, Krishna can reciprocate many millions of times over, both materially and spiritually. The basic principle involved is an exchange of love. Therefore, Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita, Yat karoshi rashnasi yaj dahoshi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi kuntiya tat kurishvam arpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. With love and affection, one should try to give something to Krishna from one's source of income. Then one's life will be successful. Krishna is full in all opulences. He doesn't need anything from anybody. But if one is prepared to give something to Krishna, that is for his own benefit. The example given in this connection is that when one's real face is decorated, the reflection of one's face is automatically decorated. Similarly, if we try to serve Krishna with all our opulences, we, as parts and parcels or reflections of Krishna, will become happy in exchange. Krishna is always happy for he is Atmaram, fully satisfied with his own opulence. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshura Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnamamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakana Rakanatham Vidam Tam Jivam Sadhuitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiv Shakan Pitamishta Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Putale Shrimati Bhakti Prakasa Swami Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Putale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Prasharane Nirvashesha Shunavadi Pashtatya Dishadarane Utir Mahadviri Mafur Vibor Niramaya Shatya Mushu Purusha Bhungti Gunan Shurasha Shurashatmaka Shavlankashishta Bhagavan Vashamsime. So Krishna approaches the fruit vendor having in good intention carrying some grains for exchange, but all the grains have fallen. And so the fruit vendor, Aborigine, a simple woman, she sees this, but still nonetheless out of affection for Krishna, immediately she offers whatever fruits that Krishna wants to take. So she wasn't very, and of course, Krishna immediately filled her basket with all jewels and gold. So this woman, she's described, Aborigine, Srila Prabhupada uses the word, means we can infer she wasn't very civilized. Civilized in the sense of being very learned, very scholarly, very simple-hearted. Not very austere, not even, maybe not even conversant with the principles of Vedas, etc., like that. But she had, despite these apparent lack of qualifications, she had the real qualification, and that was devotion to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, he says in this purport that the essence of what we offer to Krishna is not, the real point is offering with love. If something is offered with love, then Krishna will accept it. Otherwise not. He quotes here, Srila Prabhupada, from Prahlad Maharaj. Elsewhere, in the beginning of his prayers, Prahlad Maharaj, he says, Manye dhana bijana rupa tapaushatojas, tejaf prabhava balapaurisha buddhi yogaha, nara dhanai bhavanti parasapumso, bhaktiyatatosha bhagavanga jivitapaya. So Prahlad Maharaj, he lists this huge list that great learning, sensory prowess, great bodily strength, knowledge of the Vedas, great influence, beautiful form, wealth. All these, one can possess all these qualifications as the demigods did when Prahlad Maharaj in that situation, but still, nara dhanai bhavanti parasapum. So, even though one may possess these, still Krishna isn't satisfied by these in and of themselves. Rather, he concludes, Bhaktiyata Tosha Bhagavanga Jutapaya. He's simply pleased by bhaktiya, by devotional service. If we see Prahlad Maharaj himself, although in one sense he was qualified, he was the son of Hiranyakashipu, who was then the king of the universe, still, what qualification particularly did Prahlad Maharaj have? Not much, especially if you take it in the assembly of the demigods in which he was present. It was almost Prahlad was like a pea compared to the demigods. He says in the beginning of his prayers elsewhere, the demigods, they approach Lord Nrsimha, and they themselves offer such nice, beautiful prayers. And Prahlad Maharaj, he says in the beginning, Pramadiya Surganamani Uttasita Satvaikata Nakatayo Vachasam Parvahehi. These demigods, they're completely situated in the mode of goodness. They have all the godly qualities. And from their mouths, flow streams of nectar from their mouths. And if you see their prayers, they're such poetic prayers, very nicely composed. But still, no, Lord Nrsimha wasn't satisfied by such prayers, even by the prayers of Lord Shiva and Lakshmi Devi. But rather, when Prahlad Maharaj approached Lord Nrsimha, then Lord Nrsimha became pacified. So that quality of Prahlad Maharaj, it actually satisfied the Lord. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, he quotes from history, what is that? Gajayutapaya. He cites the history of Gajendra. What qualification did Gajendra have? He wasn't beautiful, he wasn't learned, he was very strong, you could take it from an elephant's point of view, but from the point of view of the demigods, he's like nothing. But still, Gajendra's qualification was that he sincerely cried out to the Lord in devotion, and the Lord came to him. He exhibited devotional service to the Lord. So all these other he was devoid of any other material qualification you could take it as, but because he possessed this one attribute, he was successful. So similarly too, this Aboriginal woman, Srila Prabhupada is saying here, not necessarily any great material, we don't hear of her possessing any sort of great material quality, but because she had this one quality of devotion to Krishna, therefore everything else was complete. And actually from this one quality of Krishna, everything else comes. Krishna says many times, actually, I think Srila Prabhupada quotes in this purport, Bhaktya Mam Abhijananti, that Krishna in Gita, he says that I'm not satisfied by anything other than devotional service. He tells Uddhava, similarly in the 11th canto, Nasadhyate Mam Yogo, Nasankyam Dharma Uddhava, Naswadhyaya Tapastyago, Yatha Bhaktir Mamorjita. My dear Uddhava, you can study the Vedas very minutely. You can understand Sankhya Yoga, etc. You can be very austere, but still, I'm not as pleased by these things, which are even prescribed in the Vedas, as by one who possesses devotion. So this possession of devotion is the real import of the Vedas. Vedagai Jahara Charito, but Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoti Abhidya Vinasajati. The real import of the Vedas is this Prema Bhakti. So, Srila Prabhupada, he says in this purport, otherwise, if one is puffed up with false prestige, thinking, I have so much opulence and I'm giving Krishna something, then Krishna won't accept the offering. In other words, if we think ourselves very exceptional or very qualified, then that actually disbars us from advancement in devotional service. Even though we may be very materially qualified, we may be making advancements materially in some material quality or material talent. We may be becoming a very nice cook, a very nice singer, a very good instrument player. We may be even distributing books very nicely and be improving in that. But if the consciousness isn't being reformed by the activity, then Krishna doesn't accept such an activity. Srila Prabhupada, he says here. Elsewhere, actually becomes a disembarment from devotional service. Queen Kunti Devi, in her prayers, she famously says, Janmaishvaya Shtashipir, Idmana Madaf Puman, Naivar Hatti Apitatum Vai, Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. So, famously, she lists these four qualities, Janmaishvaya Shtashri, high birth, learning, opulence, etc., like this. And she says that for one who possesses these, generally people become puffed up by these material qualifications. And not only that, she says specifically, Srila Prabhupada translates, one is unable to approach you with sincere feeling unless he is a kinchana. He's without material possession. Of course, it's not always the case. Generally, we see devotees, sometimes they have very great material qualifications, such as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Our own Srila Prabhupada had so many good, high qualifications, very learned, very scholarly, very personal with people, very knowledgeable in terms of our own Srila Prabhupada, very knowledgeable in terms of the world, very worldly, to put it like that, in terms of management, dealing with people, etc. He was very expert from many angles of vision. So a devotee may possess material opulences like this, but he doesn't become puffed up by them. He knows how to utilize them in Krishna's service. And he knows that even though one may possess these things, the real thing is again, as Krishna, the quote again, bhaktya mam abhijananti. Only by pure devotional service is Krishna pleased. Srila Prabhupada, he says that the basic principle involved is an exchange of love. So just as Srila Prabhupada is quoting here, it's a very poetic verse, and parer, palahi, etc. like that. And so Srila Prabhupada quotes patram pushpam palam toyam yumi bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnami prayatmanaha. That one may offer me a fruit, a flower, what is that? A fruit, a flower, a leaf, or some water, with love and devotion specifically. And if he does so, then I'll accept it, Krishna says. Elsewhere, actually the same verse, it will come again in the 10th canto, when Sudama Brahmana, he approaches Lord Krishna, induced by his wife, taking along some chipped rice, some flattened, some poha like that. So Krishna, he doesn't want to give the chipped rice to Krishna because he thinks it's a very low class. Tradition. I mean, if you look at it, among foodstuffs, actually chipped rice is a pretty low class foodstuff. It could still make it, but in terms of, there's so many more opulent preparations you can make. And what to speak of giving it to the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So Dhamma was thinking, what is this? How can I possibly give this to Krishna? And so he approaches Krishna, and Krishna, because he's Paramatma, he understands immediately that this Sudama, he's hiding this chipped rice. And Krishna, he speaks the same verse, this patram pushpam palam toyam, to Sudama Brahmana. And of course, most of us are familiar with the story. Then Sudama brings forward, Krishna almost forcibly makes him bring forward the chipped rice, and then he accepts it because it was given with love by Sudama Brahmana. Specifically within this verse, this patram pushpam palam toyam, there's this word here, ashnami pariyatmanaha. And then we have, Srila Prabhupada, he quotes the same purport, yet karoshi yet ashnasi, whatever you do, whatever you eat. So Krishna literally says here, if you offer me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or some water, I'll eat that, even among the flowers. So in BBT commentary to this verse in the 10th canto later, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this word ashnami, and he says that Krishna is so satisfied by the offerings of his pure devotees that in love, even if those devotees offer him a flower, out of love, Krishna will eat that flower. So this is this exhibits or highlights the centrality, the essence of offering something with devotion. Srila Prabhupada elsewhere, he says that his reciprocation, elsewhere in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, one purport, he says, quote, his reciprocation is a pure loving exchange. It is not dependent on the external quality of what is offered. So one may offer something very opulent, sabjis, very opulent sweets, rasgulla, rasmalai, etc., or he may offer chipped rice. As long as it's done with love and devotion, Krishna accepts it. Of course, it extends to all aspects of devotional service. One may be a very expert book distributor. One may be, from the material point of view, not such a big book distributor. But Krishna is pleased by the effort. One may be a very expert cook, and one may cook very simple khichdi. It doesn't mean Krishna doesn't accept the khichdi, and he only accepts very opulent offerings. As long as the devotion is there, Krishna will accept it. Of course, at the same time, it's not that we're blind to the external quality. It's not that we're fanatics in the other way. It's just like if somebody's tone deaf, if somebody can't carry a tune, generally we don't ask them to lead kirtan. It's not that Krishna won't accept the offering, but it's a thing of practicality. It's just like if somebody doesn't know how to cook, we don't send them into the kitchen on a feast day and ask them to cook. Now, Krishna may accept the offering, but it's a point of practicality. Different devotees have different qualities. Different devotees know how to do different things differently. And so we engage them like that. But it's not that we give, how to say, always we're all seeing that the best singer is playing, the best instrument player is playing, that only the best book distributors go out. We encourage everybody to engage in all aspects of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada wanted devotees to be expert, which means knowing a little of everything. And so, like that, actually, so yes, this external quality we're not blind to, but at the same time, we're not overly fanatical about it. Somebody may not be a very expert cook, but it doesn't mean he can't cook. Actually, and nor does it mean he has to very intensely study cooking until he can cook. It's not that somebody has to practice vocal lessons for 5 years before he can sing kirtan. Actually, Srila Prabhupada encouraged on the job, what we call in English, on the job training, which means that you learn as you do it. Nobody tells you how to do it, or maybe you may get some instruction, but actually, mainly, when you do it by trial and error, you start to learn. And by doing that, Krishna gives intelligence. So it's not, the principle is that it's not by refinement of some sort of material talent, but rather it's the actual offering. And so if we engage in some service, whatever it may be, Krishna, being pleased with that, he'll give us intelligence how to progress in that service. Practically, just like we see, actually there's one history, a very good example is book distribution. Practically is learned on the job. It's not that you go to 1,000 seminars and conferences, how to speak people, how to convince people, how to persuade, how to make friends and influence people. It's not that we make some sort of study like this, rather we go out and then we meet people practically and then we learn how to do it. So similarly too, we see among Srila Prabhupada, his disciples, he said, there's one quote from one letter, Srila Prabhupada, one devotee asking about learning some talent, and Srila Prabhupada, he said, it's not that you have to learn something first and then you can serve. The service itself is learning. The more you try to render service, the more you become advanced, how to become an experienced servant. So even if in the beginning, one is rendering not so, from the material point of view, not so amazing service, it's not that from the beginning, when one is cooking, immediately one is going to cook a 15-item feast. It's not expected. But that separate endeavor is not necessary. It's just like in 1970, from the beginning of his movement, Srila Prabhupada was encouraging his disciples to paint art, particularly among them Jadharani Mataji, and other Matajis were under her. And so by 1970, ISKCON Press at that time were starting to produce hardbound books. And Srila Prabhupada, he wanted included in those books art, full color art pictures, paintings. And so 1970, 1969, 1970, Krishna book was being produced as well as Nectar Devotion. And so Srila Prabhupada, he wanted many pictures, especially for this Krishna book. And so these artists, actually they had no formal training. Jadharani Mataji, she knew a little, but she could draw like that, but not something like paintings, that was a whole different level. And so they were feeling apprehensive actually that, how can I don't know how to paint at all. How can I put my art in my spiritual master's books when practically, they were feeling it's such low quality what they're outputting. So they proposed to Srila Prabhupada, we could study, why don't we study painting techniques, Renaissance art techniques, and then we can paint pictures. And Srila Prabhupada, he flatly rejected it. He said, no, he said, you simply chant Hare Krishna as you paint, and Krishna will give you the intelligence. And Rameshwar Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, he tells this story quite often. If you look at Krishna book, the old prints of Krishna book, now they've updated the paintings, but if you look at the first volume, second volume, and sometimes there's third volume depending on the printing, you can see the progression of the talent of the artists from very simple paintings, just like the killing of Keshi demon, or even very simple one is Krishna showing the universal form, the whole universe to Mother Yashoda, to those paintings which depicted Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka is very elaborate. You can practically see how, although these artists, they had no formal training, nobody really taught them, but just by engaging in service to Krishna, they became expert in doing so. Krishna accepted their service. From the beginning, he accepted their service. It's not that Krishna rejected their simple paintings, and he appreciated their very elaborate paintings more, but Krishna gave the intelligence. Dr. Thomas Hopkins, who was a scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and he particularly was an early observer of the Hare Krishna movement from 1967, I think 66 actually. He particularly noted how he was very impressed that Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami he called him, how he was so convinced that he could give his disciples any task, and he was convinced his disciples would just do it. It's just like in 1966, Srila Prabhupada, he deputed two disciples, two disciples. Actually, at the time, I don't even think they were initiated. They were just coming from the hippie scene, and he deputed these two devotees to print a magazine. These two people had no idea how to run a magazine, how to do layout, etc. Even so much writing, not so much experience is there. The closest contact they may have had with the magazine is just reading one. But they did it. So similarly too, Srila Prabhupada told Brahmananda Prabhu that, please help me get my Bhagavad Gita printed. Brahmananda Prabhu, what is he? He was an elementary school teacher at the time. He doesn't know anything about publishing, but just by his effort, because he tried to please his spiritual master, Krishna reciprocated, and he got the Bhagavad Gita printed through Macmillan Company, then one of the most, still is prominent, biggest publishers in the U.S. So, because the point I'm making here is that because these devotees tried to offer Krishna something, even though they didn't have any sort of material talent, he didn't know how to publish a book, they didn't know how to run a magazine, they didn't know how to paint, but they just tried to do so. And Krishna gave them the intelligence. They tried to do so out of love and affection. They tried to give something to Krishna. And so Srila Prabhupada, he says here that this point in the purport, that with love and affection, one should give something to Krishna. Out of love, but also Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, quoting from Prahlad Maharaj, it's also in our own self-interest. And simultaneously, Krishna consciousness is like that. Simultaneously, we should be selfless in giving something to Krishna, but at the same time, we completely benefit. It's our highest self-interest to do so. We think at times, if I give something to Krishna, I should have my division of whatever I have, my wealth, my property, etc., and there's that what I give to Krishna. And if I give everything to Krishna, I'll be the loser. But actually, if you give everything to Krishna, you're all the winners, just as in the case of Bali Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada, he quotes here, again, this verse by Prahlad Maharaj, Naivatmanat praboreyam nijalapa porno, manam janad abidusha kurano vrinete, yad yajjano bhagavati vridittamanam tachtatmani pratimukasi tatmukashrihi. Just as if you see your face in a mirror, and you decorate that image, that face in the mirror, automatically you decorate your own face, Srila Prabhupada says here. So similarly too, by giving to Krishna, automatically we benefit ourselves. By trying to do something for Krishna, automatically we become benefited. An example given is, if one's face is decorated, a reflection of one's face in a mirror is also decorated. So the more we engage in Krishna consciousness, and the more we render service unto Krishna, the more we benefit. Prahlad Maharaj, he specifically mentions in this verse, Yad yajjano bhagavate vidadita manam, that, and then, avidasha karuno vrinete. The Lord, Krishna doesn't need anything from us. But because he's very merciful, he accepts offerings from us. Even though he himself is Atmaram, he's completely self-satisfied. Out of his mercy, he's allowing us to give him something. And so, therefore, Srila Prabhupada says here, one should give something to Krishna. And we see this even from the beginning of his movement. Srila Prabhupada was encouraging people, give something to Krishna. If you hear his early lectures in 1967, when they had a storefront in Haight-Ashbury, the hippie district of San Francisco in America, in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada, actually it's the installation of Jagannath deities. Srila Prabhupada, he encouraged the devotees there at the time, everybody there, he said, so now when you come to the temple, bring something. Bring some fruit, some flour, some water, and give it to the Lord, give it to the deities. It's something practical, because love, it means doing something practical, and particularly giving something. It's just like if you tell somebody, I love you, it doesn't really mean much unless you practically do something. You can say, I love my child, but if you don't feed the child, what's the use of such words? Conversely, if a mother completely takes care of her child, even if she doesn't say, I love my child, even if she may not vocalize it, it's completely understood. Because the main aspect of love is that it's shown by action. So, Srila Prabhupada, he says here, the second part of this purport, with love and devotion, one should try to give something to Krishna. And then he says, from one source of income. There's a little touchy subject sometimes, particularly for new people who are coming, that it's a little, actually not, at least for those of Western background. Catholic Church, there's this idea of tithing, giving to the church, etc. like this. So a very practical way to give to Krishna, of course, we give service, coming to the temple, helping, serve the deities in so many ways. Serving the deities doesn't just mean doing the offering, doing the arti. It also means cleaning the floor, cleaning the temple, serving the devotees, etc. like that. Those all aspects. But particularly a very practical thing is giving some monetary asset to Krishna, some some sort of, whether it be in terms of money itself, currency, whether it be land, etc. like that, bhoga, etc. like that. So love means giving. And particularly when you give something solid to Krishna, because generally as conditioned souls, we're very attached to what we have. And particularly we're very attached to wealth. But the thing is, wealth is very bad for us. Of the 5 places that Parikshit Maharaj gave Kali to reside, one of them is within gold, which representatively is wealth. So too much wealth is not good. And generally, within the material world, everybody's overly attached to their own belongings. When the culmination of belongings is wealth. From wealth, from money, you can purchase whatever you want. One may have $1 million, and just from those $1 million, you can get whatever you want. So this wealth, we should use in Krishna's service. This is a point reiterated again and again and again in Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Of course, those who are brahmacharis, they can't do so much of giving wealth. They can collect wealth in terms of book distribution, raising donations for the temple. For grahastas, generally, Srila Prabhupada, he gave the principle that 50% of one's wealth is to be used in the service of the Lord. 25% is to be set aside for family expense, and 25% is to be reserved for emergencies. And we see during the time of Srila Prabhupada, which at that time mainly grahastas were living in the temples, the grahasta scene was a little bit different then. Mainly devotees were following to the best of their ability. Nowadays it's a little difficult for some devotees to practice this principle, although we see Srila Prabhupada was very insistent upon it. At the same time, well, a few quotes. Householders should spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Srila Prabhupada is insistent about this. Elsewhere, the majority portion of our monetary income, not less than 50%, must be spent to carry out the order of Lord Krishna. So this principle is there. Srila Prabhupada, if you read Srila Prabhupada's books again and again and again, he mentions this point. Following in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, he who himself followed such a principle. Although sometimes practically, in practical dealings, sometimes it's a little difficult. Particularly, I don't know about here in India, when the West is quite difficult, especially to maintain even to maintain a family in the West, it's difficult. Even with the full wealth you have, what to speak of giving? But Krishna will provide. That understanding is there. And Srila Prabhupada, although he was insistent upon this principle, he sometimes made accommodations for devotees. Once, when Tamal Krishna Goswami wrote to Srila Prabhupada that householders must give 50% of their income to Krishna, the Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Prabhupada wrote back, he corrected him, and he said up to 50%. So we can understand according to one's means. So on one side is at least 50%, and the other is up to 50%. And how it is calculated, how we divide that, it may be up for argument, but Srila Prabhupada, he reiterated this principle we should understand. And so, although we can make adjustments according to what's practical to our lives, we should see that Srila Prabhupada, he constantly reiterated this 50% formula. And another thing is, generally, another teaching Srila Prabhupada, he again reiterated along with this, is that money comes automatically. Money is sent by Krishna, Radha Madhav, the husband of the goddess of fortune. Once, in Mayapur, it must have been early 70s, 71, 72, something like that. When Mayapur was just rice fields at the time. So Srila Prabhupada, he was telling his disciples, the devotees there at the time, his plans for Mayapur, how he wanted a huge temple, how he wanted to build a spiritual city, And, the devotees were living in huts in the middle of rice fields, And so they practically they approached, they said to Srila Prabhupada, how is this going to happen, There's no devotees in India. The movement wasn't established in India practically. It was just beginning. Where's the money going to come from? And Srila Prabhupada replied to them this, you're worshiping Radha Madhava. You're worshiping the husband of the goddess of fortune. So don't think these monetary assets, don't think that Krishna will let you starve, in other words. Krishna, he takes care of his devotees. And so many instances in Shad, just like I was quoting Sudama Brahmana. Sudama, what wealth did he have? Completely poverty-stricken. But still, we see Krishna took complete care of him. Of course, Krishna is no poor man, Srila Prabhupada, he would say. And he give us any amount of money at any moment in time. Simply, he's waiting to see our sincerity. Just like, similarly, Srila Prabhupada, he said, Krishna can give you the entire world, and the quote differs. Sometimes it's 5 days, sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's 11 days. But immediately, Krishna can give you the whole world if you're sincere. So similarly, too, Krishna, he can give us all assets if we have the personal purity to do so. Of course, this applies on an individual basis, personal basis, one can call, and also applies on a managerial basis in terms of running the temple, etc., like that. We see the movement in India, it's all over the world, actually. Srila Prabhupada, he will often transcendentally boast to reporters who are often envious of Srila Prabhupada, who will question him, why are you traveling in such a nice car? Why do monks possess nice building, all these nice properties? And Srila Prabhupada, he would boast that, in the matter of 10 years, I've gone from just having practically nothing to so many lakhs and lakhs and lakhs being generated every month. And he will quote, we have properties in London, in New York, in Paris, etc., like this. He was very proud that, Krishna is reciprocating. Krishna is increasing this movement. And we see that for those who stick to the principles, Krishna gives all facility like that. The formula Srila Prabhupada gave is simply stick to what he said, our standard program. It's not that we have to endeavor separately. 2 quotes from letters that Srila Prabhupada, he would again and again and again, you see, Srila Prabhupada, he would write disciples letters using the exact same instruction, exact same words. If you simply keep to our standard program, that means chanting 16 rounds daily, rising early, attending Mangalarti like that, this program is strictly maintained amongst all the devotees. They will remain pure. And if preaching is pure, automatically leaders, managers, funds, everything will be given profusely by Krishna without any doubt. Similarly to another letter, if we are in spiritual strength, there will be no scarcity of money. And the spiritual strength is that each and every one of us must chant 16 rounds and follow the rules and regulations with the great adherence. And we see historical precedents of this. The Gaudiya Math, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was living in Mayapur at the time. What did he have? He was, he was living like a renunciate practically. But we see from his preaching, from his service to Krishna, so much opulence came. And even before he started his preaching mission, after his 2 gurus had departed, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gaurika Shordas Babaji, he was apprehensive, actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was thinking about, how... My gurus have tasked me to spread this Krishna consciousness. How am I going to do it? I'm just one person. I don't have any learning. I don't have any opulence. I don't have any wealth. But then he had one dream where all the previous acharyas and the Panchatattva, 6 Goswamis, they came to him and they said, Saraswati Thakur, don't worry. All opulence, all learning, all manpower is there at your possession. Simply, you have to go and preach, and all these things will come in due course of time. And we see practically that happen. We see the Gaudiya Math at its peak, that happened. So similarly to Srila Prabhupada, it happened. He went from being, actually at one point in New York, he was homeless. When he was kicked out of one crazy hippie's house, he was homeless at one point. Living in a small apartment and then operating out of a storefront. In the matter of 10 years, he went from having a small storefront in the lowest class area of New York, the Bowery, if any of you have been there, Now it's completely different, but then it was practically a ghetto. From that to having an 11-story skyscraper building just in Midtown Manhattan. If any of you know Times Square, maybe you've heard of it. It's like you could say the heart, is the world, the central lotus whirl of the material world. So, and it's the hub of New York practically. And so just, what is that? 10, 15 blocks from this Times Square, the devotees had this beautiful skyscraper building. So in the matter of 10 years, and of course, Srila Prabhupada, he himself noted, they had the Ratha Yatra that year, bringing down Lord Jagannath through Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue is the largest, most important street, Srila Prabhupada say, is the most important street in the world. It's definitely the most important street in New York. It's huge. So many big names, big printing companies, big shops are there. Everybody goes to Fifth Avenue, at least Karmis, and they go to New York. And Srila Prabhupada, he brought Lord Jagannath there. In the matter of 10 years, from having practically nothing to completely expanding the Krishna consciousness movement. How? By Krishna's reciprocation with his pure devotee. Just as this Aboriginal woman, she didn't have any sort of wealth. Her wealth was her fruits. Not particularly wealthy. We can understand fruit vendor means not very wealthy, especially for those selling something on the side of the street. Not very wealthy. But because she gave sincerely to Krishna, she became so wealthy, fabulously wealthy. Of course, that wealth is not that something she particularly desired, and it's not that wealth that Srila Prabhupada particularly desired that wealth, nor should we particularly desire that wealth, but we shouldn't be in anxiety about these things. Krishna perfectly takes care of his devotees. Of course, we say that, and then elsewhere we see sometimes devotees living in complete poverty. I was quoting even the beginning of the movement from 1966, Srila Prabhupada emphasized this principle that Krishna will reciprocate, Krishna will send men, Krishna will send money, don't worry about your maintenance. But practically, if you see how devotees were living in the beginning of the movement, it's very, very austere. Actually, I can read one thing maybe. Just give me 1 second. Particularly those early the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in 1966 in New York and San Francisco and Buffalo, New York, they were living very, very austerely. The devotees at that time, from 66 practically to 69, first, there was no book distribution. There was no income. Of course, it's the West. Traditionally, actually, we're speaking about this depending upon Krishna. Traditionally, temples are maintained on this principle. It's not that they conduct some fantastic business. Of course, temples traditionally may have some land for growing whatever foodstuffs, etc., like that. And they may sell some prasad like that, the brahmanas. But it's not that they have some sort of fantastic business affair to maintain themselves. But traditionally, they would subside on donations. They would depend upon Krishna, in other words. Of course, this culture is not there in the West. So, these devotees in the early days, they didn't have jobs. They didn't have any particular qualification coming from a hippie background to get a job, nor were people giving to the temple because, Hare Krishna, nobody had any sort of idea. So the devotees were living in complete poverty. I will read some, if you can bear with me, just reading some excerpts from the conditions the devotees were living in. In New York, 1966, one devotee there recalls, we were poor. And so there were rarely real flowers on the altar, only plastic flowers. We had to buy the cheapest rice. We couldn't afford vegetables, and so generally we ate only potatoes. In the summer, we would buy watermelon and give it to Srila Prabhupada. We would give him the red inner part, the juicy part, and we would save the green outer part, the rind, which we would cook as sabji, because we could rarely afford vegetables. Our stainless steel cooking pots were mostly secondhand, purchased from a restaurant supply company that sold used equipment. The apartment didn't even have a stove, and so we bought a secondhand gas stove for $20. Even our clothes were secondhand. Devotees were living like this. And then there's one other description I'll read. Devotees living in the winter. Let me see. Oh, I can speak from memory because I think it's gotten moved around. So in Buffalo, New York means cold in the winter. So Rupa Nuga Prabhu, he was over that center. He didn't possess. he didn't possess any sort of wealth. He was preaching to students. Those people who were coming, what wealth did they possess? So it was just complete poverty-stricken position. And so New York is very, very cold, and it snows a lot there. So the devotees, they're living in a rundown house. The windows were broken, and they described that snow would just, they had no heating, and snow would just pile outside of the house. They opened the door, and they had to shovel the snow just to get outside of the house, and they had no heating. They were living in such conditions. And so we say this is going on. At the same time, we say Krishna takes care of his devotees. He does. Krishna may test his devotees, but Krishna always, in English, Krishna always comes through in the end. Krishna always sees that his devotees are taken care of ultimately. Principally, this protection is spiritual protection. And we see that the austerities these devotees went through, it made them very strong. But ultimately, Krishna made an arrangement. Although devotees were living in these sorts of conditions, we see what fantastic facilities they later acquired. Particularly, ISKCON's first property in Los Angeles, which they still have to this day, that not La Cienega. It's, what is that? Watsika Avenue Temple, the current ISKCON LA Temple. That was purchased, that was ISKCON's first property, actually. They purchased that, actually, Gorgamuni Prabhu, he purchased that. The devotees, like I said, nobody had a job, nobody had any sort of income. And so Srila Prabhupada, at the time, he told devotees, we had to, practically, some devotees had to work just to maintain themselves, maintain the temples. And so Gorgamuni Prabhu, he had one idea to start selling incense. And so what he did, he bought one, I don't know the name for it, it's sticks that you light. It's a stick you light on fire that's used to light fireworks, basically. So he would take these sticks and he would dip them in essential oils to make incense, basically. He would sell that and you burn it, etc. You make incense like that. And so, spiritual sky incense, this was called, started, 1968, I think. So Gorgamuni Prabhu, he started the spiritual sky incense in 1968. And in 1970, spiritual sky had grown to such an extent, it was so successful that it was generating $1 million annually. $1 million means, what is that? It's $7.5 million today in rupees. That's 600 million rupees annually. From nothing. He had no experience how to run an incense business. But from this spiritual sky incense, actually, it supported much of the movement. It supported the Sankirtan, it supported the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books, and the revenue from the spiritual sky incense, it purchased that temple in Los Angeles, which is still there today, that magnificent temple. So Krishna, devotees were living in poverty, but Krishna gave intelligence, and it came very practically. Another's way, intelligence came very practically with the development of the movement. We're talking about there will be no scarcity. Srila Prabhupada said, if you distribute my books, there will never be any scarcity. There will never be any short of money if you distribute my books. And we see once book distribution took off the movement went from practically being in a poverty-stricken state to being fabulously successful. In fact, I was mentioning that reporters would criticize the movement. It was so successful. And Srila Prabhupada, he would boast that never has it been seen, So even materially, you won't find a business that has gone from, nothing, literally nothing Srila Prabhupada started with, to having properties all over the world. They're generating so much money. It's unprecedented in history, Srila Prabhupada would say. So particularly, this book distribution, it brings income. For those who are distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada who personally takes care of, Krishna personally oversees. It's just like Srila Prabhupada offered the example, just like during wartime, of course, all the citizens are maintained by the state. The state looks to the care of all the citizens, but particularly the soldiers who go out on the front lines, the state particularly gives them all accommodation. Even during wartime, they make sure they have first-class food, first-class apparel. They're nicely taken care of. Even though the citizens themselves, they may be rationing, etc., like that, the soldiers, they feel no inconvenience like that because they're taking all risk. So similarly, too, for those devotees who take all risk in Krishna's service to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya, Krishna gives all facility like that. Of course, we're speaking like this, that Krishna, money comes from Krishna, Krishna will supply money. We shouldn't take it in a materialistic form. It's not that, as some people think, I go to the temple, I offer some prayers to the deities, please give me dhanam, janam, sundarim, etc. like that. It's not like that. Krishna may give if he's so inclined. Generally, he doesn't. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya, he says, if some fool, he asks me for some material benefit, He may do so, but I'm not such a fool that I will give him such a thing. Actually, if Krishna gives us such a thing, generally he gives it in such a way that we never ask for it again. And general principle is that harishyet dhanam shnahi. He takes it away. But generally, Krishna takes away wealth. So it's not, Krishna gives wealth for those who are engaged in his service. And the wealth is to be used in Krishna's service. That's the principal thing. The wealth isn't for our own personal gratification. So much wealth may come, so much wealth will come if we follow strictly, and we use that wealth in Krishna's service. Otherwise, for wealth that just sits, miser, Srila Prabhupada used this term. Somebody who has a lot of money and just sits on top of it. He doesn't give it to anybody. He himself doesn't use it. Sometimes often actually, you see people like that. So people fabulously wealthy, and they don't use a cent of their money. Just like, well, I won't mention names, but there's some of the richest billionaires actually in America, fabulously wealthy, but they don't spend any of it. They may give some charity now and then, but they're misers. So we shouldn't be misers in Krishna consciousness. We should use our wealth in Krishna service. And by doing so, Krishna will naturally take care of us. And we'll make sure we're fed, we're clothed, everything will be taken care of. We shouldn't be unduly anxious. Srila Prabhupada, before taking sannyas, he himself expresses that he was thinking, how will things go on? How will I manage, etc. Not exactly sannyas, even vanaprastha, he was thinking like this actually. But he says later, I could see Krishna took care of me all the while. And in relation to his disciples, particularly, he was saying that, I've given up a relation of my children, but now Krishna has given me so many children. Srila Prabhupada, he was a householder. He became the holder of so many houses, so many different properties of the movement. He was a very successful businessman in terms of running his pharmaceutical company. And actually, Srila Prabhupada, if he so desired, he could have been very successful in doing so. But Srila Prabhupada, he gave it up. And the result, Krishna not only, initially he took away everything, but Krishna gave him more wealth than Srila Prabhupada could have possibly imagined. So, of course, it will always be the case for every one of us. Generally, this principle should be understood, as Srila Prabhupada is saying here. With love and affection, one should try to give something to Krishna from one's source of income, according to our means. It's not that we put ourselves into poverty. It's not that we're living on the street in the name of, and our family is starving in the name of giving everything to Krishna. Taking care of our family is also given to Krishna in a different form, like that. So we should see to these things, because ultimately, the use of wealth, by using it in Krishna's service, as or to repeat the same thing, what is that? Anyway, the English, as decorating one's face in the mirror, one's own face is decorated. Krishna doesn't require our wealth. He doesn't need it. He's the source of all wealth. But by engaging our wealth in Krishna's service, we become the benefactor. We become the winner. So, that's all I'll say, I'll particularly have, so I can end my class here. That's basically all the points of the purport. So I can end my class and take any comments, questions, etc. Anybody may have. Otherwise, we can end. Did you use anything? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh, completely, yeah. Although he dropped all the grains, yeah. Uh-huh. 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 It's interesting, yeah. It's interesting. Even though Krishna I mean, the fruit vendor, what did she gain by such an exchange, He had dropped all the grains, but because of her devotion, like that, etc. So, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. We see even the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, particularly Brahmananda Prabhu, he was working on Srila Prabhupada's order as an elementary school teacher, giving everything to Srila Prabhupada, actually. He wasn't even so, I mean, he had just known Srila Prabhupada for under a year, working a job, giving everything. It's unheard of. Similarly, Satsvaru Das Goswami, he was also doing the same thing, etc., like that, giving everything to Krishna, like that. And Krishna, you see, practically, Krishna took care of them, even to this day, so, etc., like that. So, yeah, it's very glorious. Uh-huh. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah, things with the development, particularly in the beginning, there is what Srila Prabhupada called an emergency. So often you see devotees wanting to learn something. Generally, Srila Prabhupada discouraged. When devotees were asking about learning Mridanga, Srila Prabhupada said, no, you're having kirtan, just go on with that. No need to professionally learn Mridanga. When devotees will ask about learning Sanskrit, Bengali, generally, of course, there's exceptions. Srila Prabhupada discouraged it. But at the same time, he also acknowledged, just like Achutananda Prabhu now, he learned Mridanga from, I don't know, we're in Bengal somehow. And Srila Prabhupada appreciated his Mridanga playing. So it's not that, of course, within Veda culture, 64 arts, it's not that we neglect those arts. And it's not that, although Krishna is pleased with very simple offerings, still he's pleased by the devotion. Still, we try to make things nice for Krishna. It's just like when we decorate, you're decorating the altar for festivals, you make it so nice, You can make it simple, Krishna will also accept that. So similarly too, it's not that we can't refine our service, become very materially expert in something. It's not that we can't sing very nicely, can't play instruments very nicely, that we can't learn to speak very nicely, etc., things like this. But we should understand at the heart of it, in doing so, that it's just decoration, basically. And the real thing is to have that devotion. Otherwise, without that sort of understanding, it's very easy to get lost in such a, thinking I have to sing like this, I have to do like this, I have to cook like this, etc., like that. And that point. Another thing you were mentioning regarding the last point, regarding becoming qualified and then doing so. Another point that came to my mind is the same thing with wealth. Generally, the thing of preaching is offered that first I have to become learned myself, perfect myself, and then preach. Another parallel to that, Srila Prabhupada, he himself said he was, of course, pure devotee, but he said, I was thinking like that. First I'll become rich, and then I'll do something for Krishna. But actually, Krishna took everything away. But Srila Prabhupada, he did something for Krishna, and then he became fabulously rich. Richer than he could have even imagined. So that's another thing. Okay, so I'll finish there. Okay.